The human colony on Proxima Centauri b shone like a beacon of hope against the dark backdrop of space. For nearly 10 years they had lived alongside the Galactic Imperial Confederation in what appeared to be harmony. The Empire's ships, with their sleek metallic hulls and pulsing energy signatures, had become a common sight in the colony's skies. Mina Park skipped along the pathways of the agricultural dome, her dark hair bouncing with each step. At 9 years old, she possessed an extraordinary gift that even she didn't fully understand, an ability to sense emotions and intentions that went beyond human perception. The colony scientists had been studying her abilities with wonder and caution. "Don't go too far, Mina," her mother called from the hydroponic vegetable beds. "I won't," Mina replied, her small hand waving as she continued toward the communication center where her father worked. The communication center bustled with activity. Humans and Imperial delegates moved between workstations, their conversations a mix of Earth languages and the clicking, harmonic tones of Imperial speech. Mina slipped between them, largely unnoticed as children often are among busy adults. In a quiet corner, she spotted something new, a small device with pulsing blue lights that seemed to call to her. It was an Imperial communication module, left carelessly on a desk during the preparations for the upcoming diplomatic ceremony. Mina's fingers hovered over it, her unusual abilities making the device seem almost alive to her. When she finally touched it, images flooded her mind, not words or sounds, but intentions. The Empire's true plans for Earth and its colonies unfolded in her consciousness: infiltration, assessment, and eventually, complete subjugation. "What are you doing here, child?" An Imperial official loomed over her, his scaled skin shifting from blue to an alarming orange. His 3 eyes narrowed as he saw what she was touching. "You're going to hurt us," Mina said simply, her young mind unable to filter the truth her gift had revealed. The official's color darkened further. He spoke rapidly into his own communicator in the Imperial language, his eyes never leaving Mina. Within hours, the diplomatic ceremony was in full swing. The colony's Great Hall was decorated with both Earth symbols and Imperial banners. Mina stood beside her parents, dressed in her best clothes, uncomfortable in the formal setting. Imperial Commander Reawaken stepped forward to present a gift to the colony's governor. "As a symbol of our continued cooperation," he announced, his translator device converting his clicks and whistles to human speech. That's when it happened. The lights dimmed briefly, and when they returned to full brightness, confusion erupted. Mina lay on the floor, unmoving. Medical staff rushed forward, but it was too late. The official explanation came swiftly: a tragic power surge in the ceremonial lighting, a random accident claiming 1 young life. Dr. Han Ji-woo knew better. As Mina's godmother and the colony's senior medical scientist, she had been monitoring the child's unusual abilities for years, and as a former Earth military scientist, she recognized an assassination when she saw one. In her private quarters that night, she reviewed the security footage, watching as a barely perceptible beam struck. Minor in the brief darkness, the Empire had eliminated a threat, a human child who could perceive their true intentions. The colony leadership gathered in a secure room deep underground. Governor Lee paced the floor, his face ashen. "We can't accuse them without proof, and even with proof, their fleet could obliterate us in minutes." "So we do nothing?" Dr. Han challenged, her grief fueling her anger. "Mina was murdered because she discovered something about them." "What exactly did she discover?" asked Security Chief Kang. "I don't know specifically," Dr. Han admitted. "But I've suspected for some time that the Empire's friendly facade hides darker motives. Mina's empathic abilities must have detected something concrete." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity, still new to interstellar relations, was potentially facing an advanced civilization with conquest on its mind. "There's something," Dr. Han said finally, her voice dropping to nearly a whisper. "Something from before the first contact. Kira, before any of you were assigned to this colony." The others leaned in as Dr. Han accessed a secure file on her personal device. "During Earth's resource wars, I worked on Project Lazarus. We created soldiers, enhanced humans with abilities. that surpassed anything natural evolution had produced. When peace finally came, the project was deemed too dangerous to continue. The soldiers were placed in cryogenic suspension, hidden away in a facility that few know exists. The images on her screen showed men and women in suspended animation chambers, their vital signs monitored by ancient systems. These soldiers were designed to defend humanity against overwhelming odds, Dr. Han continued. They're still there, sleeping beneath the Antarctic ice on Earth, waiting for a threat that would justify their awakening. Governor Lee stared at the images, conflict evident on his face. You're suggesting we revive weapons from a desperate time in our history? These people were created for warfare that never came. And now the war has found us, Dr. Han replied firmly. I believe Mina's death is just the beginning. The Empire is planning something, and we need defenders who can match their capabilities. As they debated deep into the night, Imperial ships continued their regular patrols above the colony, their crew unaware that beneath the appearance of acceptance, humanity was preparing to unveil its most closely guarded secret. Super soldiers created for a war that, until now, had never come. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks in a small transport ship disguised as a mining vessel. Dr. Han Jiwoo sat at the control panel, watching as the blue-white sphere of humanity's birthplace grew larger in the view screen. 6 trusted colony scientists and security personnel accompanied her, each chosen for their skills and their commitment to protecting humanity. Approaching Antarctic airspace, announced Technician Song, his fingers dancing across the navigation system. No Imperial vessels detected in Earth orbit. Earth had become a quiet place. After the resource wars and the subsequent exodus to new colonies, many had abandoned the recovering planet. The few remaining population centers were concentrated around the equator, leaving the poles largely untouched. The ship descended through heavy cloud cover, buffeted by the harsh Antarctic winds. Below them stretched an endless expanse of white, broken only by jagged mountain peaks pushing through the ice sheet. There, Dr. Han pointed to an unremarkable area of flat ice. The entrance is beneath that plateau. They landed half a kilometer away, deploying specialized drilling equipment to access the hidden facility. The cold bit through their thermal suits as they worked, the wind howling around them like a living thing trying to push them away. 6 hours later, they stood before a massive steel door embedded in ancient ice. Dr. Han placed her palm against a scanner nearly hidden in the frame. After 70 years, she wasn't sure the security system would still recognize her. The scanner hummed, then glowed green. With a groan of protest, the door began to slide open. "How is the power still working?" Security Officer Bay asked, his breath fogging in the frigid air. "Nuclear batteries," Dr. Han replied. "Designed to last centuries." They entered a dark corridor that sloped downward into the ice. As they moved forward, motion sensors triggered lights that flickered to life after decades of disuse. The air inside was stale but breathable. The main chamber took their breath away. 50 cylindrical pods arranged in concentric circles dominated the vast room. Each pod contained a human figure perfectly preserved in cryogenic suspension. Frost covered the transparent viewing panels, obscuring the faces within. "Project Lazarus," Dr. Han whispered, emotion making her voice tremble. "Humanity's last defense." The team worked quickly to activate the facility's systems. Ancient computers hummed to life, their interfaces outdated but functional. Dr. Han accessed the main database, reviewing the status of each soldier. "We'll start with Colonel Kim," she decided, moving to the central pod. He was the project leader, the first volunteer. If anyone can help us navigate this situation, it's him. The revival process was complex. The team worked for hours, carefully, following procedures outlined in the facility's database. The pod's temperature gradually increased as nutrient-rich fluid was pumped into the colonel's bloodstream, replacing the cryoprotectant chemicals that had prevented cell damage during his long sleep. When the pod finally opened with a hiss of escaping vapor, Colonel Kim Do-yun lay motionless, his chest barely rising and falling. His face showed no signs of aging from the day he entered suspension. Dr. Han administered a stimulant directly to his heart. Minutes passed in tense silence before the colonel suddenly gasped, his eyes flying open. He tried to sit up, movements uncoordinated after decades of inactivity. "Easy, Colonel," Dr. Han said, supporting his shoulders. "You've been asleep for a very long time." His confusion was evident as he looked around at unfamiliar faces in the familiar facility. "Doctor Han?" He recognized her, though she had aged significantly since their last meeting. "How long?" 70 years, Colonel. The world has changed." Over. The next hours, as Colonel Kim's strength gradually returned, Dr. Han explained everything. How humanity had reached the stars, how they had encountered the Galactic Imperial Confederation, the decade of seemingly peaceful relations, and finally, young Mina's death. Colonel Kim listened in silence, his enhanced mind processing the information rapidly despite his recent revival. When Dr. Han finished, he simply nodded. "This is why we were created," he said, his voice growing stronger. "To protect humanity when conventional forces couldn't." The team worked tirelessly, reviving the remaining soldiers one by one. The process didn't always succeed. Some pods showed critical failures in their life support systems over the decades. Others contained soldiers whose bodies rejected reanimation, their enhanced systems failing to restart properly. In the end, 37 soldiers stood in the facility's main chamber, a fraction of their original number, but still a formidable force. Each possessed unique enhancements, some with incredible strength, others with advanced tactical processing abilities, enhanced reflexes, or specialized combat skills. As they prepared the soldiers for transport back to the colony, a security alert blared from the facility entrance. "Detection drones," Security Officer Bay reported urgently. "Imperial design." Colonel Kim moved with surprising speed for someone recently revived, instantly taking command. "How did they find us?" Dr. Han accessed the facility's external sensors. "They've been watching Earth. Old records must have mentioned Project Lazarus, but they believed it was just a myth." Her face hardened. "Until we arrived and activated the facility." "Then we've lost the element of surprise," Colonel Kim said, "but not the advantage. They still don't know what they're facing." He turned to address his soldiers, standing straighter despite his still recovering body. "We were created to defend. Humanity against impossible odds," he told them. "That time has come." The transport ship carrying the Lazarus soldiers docked at a secret facility on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Far from Imperial patrols, this abandoned research station provided the perfect base for their operations. The 37 super soldiers moved with purpose through the station's corridors, their bodies rapidly regaining strength after the long cryosleep. Colonel Kim stood before a holographic display of the solar system, studying the positions of Imperial vessels and installations. His enhanced mind processed the information with extraordinary speed, identifying patterns invisible to normal human perception. "They control all major transit points," he observed. "Mars, the asteroid belt, Jupiter's moons. Direct confrontation would be suicide." Lieutenant Joe, enhanced for advanced tactical analysis, pointed to Mars's small cratered moon, Phobos. "They've converted the old human mining facility into a weapons depot. Minimal security because they don't expect resistance this deep in their territory." The soldiers trained relentlessly, pushing their enhanced bodies to adapt to modern weapons and technology. Sergeant Yoon, whose muscles and bones had been reinforced to withstand extreme gravitational forces, could now lift equipment that would crush ordinary humans. Corporal Lee, with enhanced neural pathways, mastered complex Imperial computer systems in days rather than months. Dr. Han watched their progress with a mixture of pride and concern. "These soldiers were created for a different time," she confided to Colonel Kim. "A time when humanity fought itself. Now they're our only hope against an alien threat." "We were made for this moment," Kim replied simply. Everything before was just preparation. After 3 weeks of intensive training and planning, the mission to Phobos was ready. The soldiers boarded a modified cargo shuttle, its hull reconfigured to resemble an Imperial supply vessel. Each carried weapons specifically designed to counter Imperial defenses, created by the team's engineers using scavenged technology. Remember, Colonel Kim told his team as they approached Mars's orbit, we strike fast, take what we need and disappear. This isn't about winning a battle, it's about showing them we can hurt them. The shuttle docked at Phobos Station without incident, the forged identification codes passing security checks. 6 soldiers disembarked, led by Lieutenant Joe, their bodies concealed in salvaged Imperial worker uniforms. The others waited in the shuttle, weapons ready. Inside the station, Lieutenant Joe's team moved with practiced efficiency. The station's few Imperial guards paid little attention to what appeared to be routine maintenance workers. When they reached the central security hub, Corporal Lee accessed the system with extraordinary speed, disabling alarms and surveillance. We have 30 minutes before the security protocols reset, she reported through their secure communication link. The signal given, the remaining soldiers emerged from the shuttle, moving swiftly through the station's corridors. When the first Imperial Guard raised the alarm, Sergeant Yoon demonstrated his enhanced strength, tearing a sealed door from its frame to provide an escape route for his team. In the weapons depot, the soldiers selected their targets carefully. Advanced energy weapons, shield generators, and most importantly, navigation data showing Imperial supply routes throughout the solar system. The station's commander finally organized a response, deploying security forces to trap the intruders. They found themselves facing opponents unlike any they had encountered before. Private Choi, enhanced for superhuman reflexes, moved faster than their targeting systems could track. Corporal Park, with modified lung capacity and blood oxygen efficiency, fought tirelessly while the Imperial forces quickly tired in the station's thin atmosphere. Colonel Kim directed the operation from the shuttle, his enhanced mind processing multiple information streams simultaneously. When he gave the order to retreat, the soldiers fell back in perfect coordination, covering each other's withdrawal. The shuttle departed Phobos with its valuable cargo, disappearing into the darkness of space before Imperial reinforcements could arrive. By the time pursuit ships launched from Mars, the Lazarus unit was already hiding in the debris field of the asteroid belt, their shuttle's energy signature masked by specialized equipment. On the Imperial flagship orbiting Earth, Commander Tay Minho reviewed the security footage from Phobos with growing concern. The attackers moved with impossible speed and strength. Their tactics showed intimate knowledge of Imperial protocols. Most disturbing was their precision. They took exactly what they needed and nothing more. Match these attack patterns against historical records, he ordered his intelligence officer. Hours later, the officer returned, his scaled face showing the Imperial equivalent of alarm. There is one match, Commander. Earth's resource wars. 70 years ago, a special military unit called Lazarus. Commander Tay's 3 eyes narrowed. Impossible. Those soldiers would be ancient by human standards, and our intelligence indicated the program was terminated. The project was rumored to include cryogenic preservation, the officer replied hesitantly, but we dismissed it as myth. Commander Tay turned to stare at the blue-green planet, visible through his viewing portal. It seems humanity has awakened its sleeping guardians, increased security at all installations, and begin scanning for their base of operations. News of the Phobos raid spread quickly through human colonies, despite Imperial attempts to suppress the information. In hidden corners of settlements and in encrypted messages, humans whispered about the return of legendary soldiers from Earth's past. Stories grew with each telling. How a single human had torn apart Imperial armor with bare hands, how another had moved too fast to be seen by surveillance cameras. On Proxima Centauri B, where young Mina had been killed, her parents heard the rumors and felt something they had not felt since their daughter's death. Hope. They were not alone in this feeling. Throughout human settlements, people began to believe that perhaps the mighty Galactic Imperial Confederation was not invincible. After all, the Imperial response came swiftly and with overwhelming force. Commander Tay Minho deployed his most elite unit, the Void Hunters, soldiers genetically engineered for tracking and eliminating threats to the Empire. Their scaled bodies were enhanced with cybernetic implants, giving them abilities that matched or exceeded those of the Lazarus soldiers. The Antarctic facility, though abandoned after the retrieval of the super soldiers, still contained valuable research data. Dr. Han had left automated systems running to monitor Imperial communications. These systems became the Empire's first target. The Void Hunters descended on Antarctica in stealth ships that sliced through Earth's atmosphere without triggering defense systems. They found the facility's hidden entrance and breached it with plasma cutters that turned ancient steel to molten slag. Colonel Kim received the alert while planning their next strike from their Titan base. "They found the Antarctic facility," he announced to his gathered officers. "All data stores will be compromised." The loss of the facility meant more than just data. It was a psychological blow, a reminder that the Empire could reach them anywhere. Worse, the Void Hunters had obtained DNA samples from the cryochambers, allowing them to tune their tracking systems specifically to the unique genetic signatures of the Lazarus soldiers. "We need to abandon this base immediately," Colonel Kim ordered. "They'll trace our transport's flight path." The evacuation began within minutes, but they weren't fast enough. Imperial warships appeared in Saturn's orbit, launching fighters toward Titan's surface. The Lazarus soldiers fought their way to their transport ships under heavy fire. Sergeant Yoon used his enhanced strength to hold up a collapsing tunnel, allowing 20 soldiers to escape before the structure finally gave way, burying him beneath. Tons of rock and metal. 3 more soldiers fell covering the retreat, their enhanced bodies no match for the concentrated energy weapons of the Imperial fighters. The surviving Lazarus soldiers split into 3 groups, using different escape vectors to confuse pursuit. Colonel Kim led the largest group toward Jupiter's moon Europa, where abandoned human mining colonies provided numerous hiding places among the icy tunnels beneath the moon's frozen surface. In the cramped confines of their transport ship, Lieutenant Park Sung-ho worked tirelessly at a communication console salvaged from Phobos. His enhanced brain processed information at extraordinary speed, allowing him to decode Imperial transmissions that normal humans would find indecipherable. "I've broken through their security algorithms," he announced on their 5th day of flight. Accessing their strategic database now. The information he uncovered chilled them all. The Empire's long-term plans for humanity involved not partnership but complete subjugation. Humans would be classified as a managed species, their reproduction controlled, their movements restricted, their very genetic future determined by Imperial scientists. "This was always their intention," Dr. Han said quietly. Mina somehow sensed it. The Europa base provided temporary safety. The extensive tunnel system, carved by mining robots decades earlier, allowed the soldiers to move. Unseen beneath the moon's icy crust, they established a command center in a large cavern once used for equipment storage, the abandoned machinery repurposed to provide power and life support. From this hidden fortress, the Lazarus unit launched carefully planned strikes throughout the solar system. They avoided direct confrontation with Imperial forces, instead targeting supply depots, communication relays, and transport nodes. Each successful mission restored hope to human colonies and stretched Imperial resources thinner. On Mars, they disabled atmospheric processors, forcing the Empire to divert ships to evacuate their personnel. In the asteroid belt, they sabotaged mining operations, disrupting the flow of critical minerals. Near Venus, they intercepted and hijacked an Imperial supply ship, acquiring food stores that they distributed to struggling human settlements. The Empire responded by increasing security at all installations and imposing harsher restrictions on human colonies. Travel between settlements was prohibited. Communications were monitored. Anyone suspected of supporting the resistance disappeared into Imperial detention centers. But the Empire's harsh measures only strengthened human resolve. On Proxima Centauri, B factory workers deliberately sabotaged production lines manufacturing Imperial equipment. On Tau Ceti E, farmers hid food supplies from Imperial collection teams. Small acts of defiance multiplied across human space. Despite these successes, Colonel Kim knew they were fighting a losing battle. The Empire's resources vastly outmatched their own. Each operation cost them soldiers who couldn't be replaced. While the Empire could deploy seemingly endless reinforcements, "We need to strike at their command structure," he told his officers during a strategy session in their Europa base. "Cut off the head, and the body will falter." The plan he proposed seemed impossible. Infiltrate the Imperial flagship orbiting Earth, capture or eliminate Commander Tae Minho, and access the ship's communication array to broadcast the Empire's true intentions to the entire galactic community. "This is a suicide mission," Lieutenant Joe said bluntly. "Possibly," Colonel Kim acknowledged, "but if we succeed, we change the nature of this conflict entirely." As they began planning this desperate gambit, human resistance cells throughout the colonies prepared to create diversions that would draw Imperial attention away from Earth. Against overwhelming odds, humanity prepared to stake everything on one daring strike at the heart of Imperial power. The gleaming Imperial flagship, Dominion, hung in Earth's orbit, a massive vessel that dwarfed all other ships in the system. Today marked the 5th anniversary of the peaceful alliance between humanity and the Galactic Imperial Confederation. Commander Tai Minho had arranged an elaborate ceremony inviting representatives from human colonies and neutral alien civilizations to witness the Empire's benevolence. Beneath the ship's hull, a small transport approached, bearing the insignia of a minor diplomatic delegation from Tau Ceti. The vessel docked in one of the lower hangars, where security was lighter due to the day's festivities. When the doors opened, 6 figures in formal diplomatic attire emerged, their faces partially concealed by ceremonial hoods. Colonel Kim led the disguised Lazarus soldiers through the ship's corridors, their enhanced senses alert for any sign of detection. Their weapons were hidden in diplomatic gift cases, specially designed to bypass security scans. "Remember, we have 1 hour before the ceremony begins," he whispered. "Lieutenant Joe, take your team to the communications center. The rest come with me to the command deck." Meanwhile, Dr. Han worked frantically in a small laboratory on Europa. For weeks, she had been studying tissue samples from Mina Park, trying to understand the child's unusual abilities. The answer came just as the infiltration mission launched. "It's not just Mina," she realized, staring at the genetic analysis. "These markers appear in 15% of children born in space colonies. Humanity is evolving in response to new environments. Mina was just the first to develop these abilities strongly enough to detect the Empire's intentions." On the Imperial flagship, the Lazarus soldiers reached a security checkpoint. The Imperial guards examined their credentials with suspicion. "Your delegation was not on the approved list," one guard said, his scaled hand moving toward his weapon. Private Choi, enhanced for superhuman speed, moved before the guard could react. Within seconds, all 3 guards were unconscious. The team dragged them into a storage room and continued deeper into the ship. The ship's massive central chamber had been transformed for the ceremony. Dignitaries from across the sector mingled, beneath towering banners displaying Imperial symbols. Commander Tay stood on a raised platform, his ornate uniform gleaming with medals and insignia of rank. Lieutenant Joe's team reached the communications center, quickly subduing the technicians. Inside, Corporal Lee immediately began accessing the ship's systems, overriding security protocols with her enhanced mental processing. "I've gained control of the ship-wide communication system," she reported through their secure link. "Ready to broadcast whenever you give the word." Colonel Kim and his team positioned themselves strategically around the ceremonial chamber, waiting for the right moment. When Commander Tay stepped forward to begin his address, Colonel Kim gave the signal. The Lazarus soldiers shed their diplomatic robes, revealing their combat gear. The assembled guests gasped and moved away as Colonel Kim strode toward the platform. "Commander Tay," he called out, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent chamber, "your deception ends today." The commander's color shifted to a deep orange as Imperial guards rushed to protect him. These were not ordinary soldiers, but the Void Hunters, the Empire's elite warriors. The fighting was intense and brutal. The Void Hunters matched the Lazarus soldiers' enhanced abilities with their own cybernetic advantages. Sergeant Kang fell to a plasma blast that burned through his reinforced chest plate. Captain Bay used her enhanced agility to leap above the guards, landing beside Commander Tay and holding a blade to his throat. "Order your men to stand down," she demanded. From the communications center, Lieutenant Joe sent the signal to begin broadcasting. On screens throughout the ship and across the galactic network, Dr. Han's face appeared. "People of the galaxy," she began, "what you are about to see is evidence of the Empire's true intentions for humanity." The broadcast showed Imperial documents outlining plans for human subjugation. It detailed the deliberate assassination of Mina Park and revealed genetic experiments conducted on humans without their knowledge. The child they killed was not a threat, Dr. Hahn explained. She was simply the first of a new generation of humans, evolving naturally to thrive among the stars. The Empire feared this evolution and sought to control it. In the ceremonial chamber, the neutral alien delegates watched the broadcast with growing horror. The Arcturus ambassador, a tall, crystalline being, turned to face Commander Tay. "Is this true?" the ambassador asked, the translation device converting their harmonic language. "Did you kill a child to prevent this knowledge from spreading?" Commander Tay's silence was answer enough. Colonel Kim stepped forward. "The Empire has presented itself as a benevolent force, but its true goal has always been domination. We ask all free civilizations to stand with humanity against this tyranny." The response was immediate. The Arcturus ambassador pledged support, followed by delegates from Sirius and Procyon. Even some Imperial colony representatives broke ranks, declaring they would no longer participate in the subjugation of another species. Faced with a rapidly forming coalition against them, and with their flagship under control of the Lazarus soldiers, the Empire had no choice but to negotiate. A new treaty was drafted, recognizing human sovereignty and establishing a council where all species would have equal representation. 1 month later, on Proxima Centauri b, a memorial garden was dedicated to Mina Park. At its center stood a statue of the young girl, her hand extended toward the stars. The plaque beneath it read, "Her gift awakened our guardians. Her sacrifice saved our future." Colonel Kim stood at the edge of the garden, watching as Mina's parents placed flowers at the base of the statue. "What happens to us now, Lieutenant?" Joe asked, standing beside him. "We were made for war, but the war is over." Colonel Kim watched as children played near the memorial, some of them perhaps carrying the same genetic markers that had made Mina special. "We protect them," he said simply. "Not as weapons, but as guardians. That was always our true purpose." Across the human colonies, the remaining Lazarus soldiers found new roles, using their enhanced abilities to help rebuild and protect. And in the stars above, the ships of former enemies now patrolled together, ensuring that the hard-won peace would endure the end.